Scale. Just put it right next to them. Good morning, class.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Mr. Rolfus. We're going to be going over some American history class for our 8th grade social studies. Yeah, well, I had my scale up there just to let you know. So we're going to be going over some American history, early American history, mostly dealing with colonization and the main European powers that colonized North America. All right. So last week we were talking a little bit about Native Americans and early life in North America and kind of what that was all about. Today we're going to go over on how European interests started to kind of evolve in North America and enter into North America. So can any of you guys tell me who actually the first European nation to establish a colony in North America was? Yes, Julian?
Was it the Dutch?
It was not the Dutch.
Is it the Spanish?
It was the Spanish.
Yay!
Wonderful, Athena. Do you have any idea? Do you have any idea where they might have established their first colony?
Was it here?
It was actually Ponce de Leon was one of the first European people to land in North America and actually settle in North America. A couple other people in the past, Europeans, had made it over here. Kind of stopped in a few places up along the northeast coast. But Ponce de Leon actually landed in Florida and set up a small colony in Florida, just south of St. Augustine, and then eventually St. Augustine would become one of the first Florida colonies set up by the Spanish. Very good. So, as you can see up here in our learning goal, the 4 main European countries that we're going to be talking about today are going to be Britain, France, Spain, and the Dutch. All right. Now, as far as when people got here, like I mentioned, the Spanish kind of made it here first. And Ponce de Leon, I'll put a little bit of information on the board. I want you guys to put this in your notes. All right, this is probably going to be on our test for this. So in 1513, Ponce de Leon lands in Florida. All right, and this will be our section for the Spanish. All right, 1521. And guys, I don't really necessarily need for you to memorize the dates. I just kind of want you to remember who came first, what the general progression was of what colonies came to the States, all right? So 1521, I'm sure you guys probably have recognized this name, Hernan Cortez. Does anybody know what he did? Has anybody even heard that name before?
Yes.
Yes.
The Pirates
Yes.
movie.
Not the one from the Pirates movie.
Are you sure?
But very good try. I'm sorry, say that
Wasn't
again?
he like a conquistador?
He was.
Spanish explorer.
Very good. That's going to be my next question. What is a conquistador? But we've already answered that. It is a Spanish explorer.
How do you
So-
spell conquistador?
Someone's
I'm
getting an
sorry.
F.
At this point, I'd be like, I would be very
spell.
confused.
Conquistadore.
Ooh,
There you go.
thank you.
Okay, word. All right. So anyway, Hernan Cortez, he completes in 1521 his conquest of Mexico. He was mainly concerned with the Aztecs, and the reason that the Spanish actually came to Central America, Mexico area, and Florida was because they were actually looking for. Does anybody know? Yes, Julian?
Go.
Exactly. Their number one reason for coming to North America was gold and silver. They knew that we had a lot of it, and they wanted to get as much of it as they could. Yes?
I'm confused now. You mentioned Central America, but Mexico, sometimes it's referred as both, or is it part of North America, Central America? Is it more?
Well,
Which one?
North America is a continent. Okay? So that's part of North America. Mexico. All right, so from here on, guys. So after the Spanish, so I'll try and get out of your way here. The next group that really made kind of a presence was the French, and the first of them was in 1604. the French settle Arcadia and what is present-day Maine. Okay? Then in 1605, Port Royal. Port Royal is also up here on the coast near Maine and Canada, guys. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and erase a little bit of this so I've got some more room so I don't have to get on my knees to keep writing. So everybody's got this in their notes so far?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Sure.
You guys are wonderful students. All right. So next we have the British.
Yay.
Does anybody know who the famous, or what the famous British colony was that was established in North America? Think Pilgrims, Indians, that kind of stuff. Anybody? Plymouth? Wonderful. Plymouth was actually one of their first two settlements. It was actually their second. Their first was Jamestown, and that was settled in 1607. And their second, in 1620, as we mentioned earlier, was Plymouth. All right, guys, now with the English tended to settle generally along the eastern coast of the United States. Okay? And I will get into why that was in just a little bit. Cool? All right, so after the British, we have the Dutch. And the Dutch established two colonies, the first of which was Fort Nassau. Does anybody know where Nassau is? No? Has anybody ever been on a cruise?
Is it the Bahamas?
It is the Bahamas. So Nassau, we can't really see it on our map up here, but Nassau is going to be somewhere down in here. Okay, right in the Bahamas. And their second was New Amsterdam. Does anybody know where New Amsterdam was? Or what its current name is? Because New Amsterdam is actually a really big, popular city today.
Is
It's
it?
one of our biggest cities. But it originally started as New Amsterdam. Anybody? Yes?
New York.
Exactly. Very good job. So, everybody's familiar with New York. New York City? That used to be New Amsterdam. That was a big Dutch colony. So we'll go ahead and get this off of here. So now you guys kind of have a good idea of who came and when they came. Now we're going to start talking about their interests and why they came. Alrighty, guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start this off by passing out some of these maps. Okay, this is just a general map of North America, Canada, Mexico, Caribbean. So everybody grab one of those. Turn
you.
off the perfect number of these. Thank goodness.
Thank you. No pairing up today.
Alright, guys. And just kind of follow along with me as we go on the map. Like I said, your guys' maps are going to have a little bit more of the Caribbean, Canada, and Mexico, but I'll kind of point and you guys can refer on your maps. Okay, so the main interests of why our European powers came to the United States. Does anybody know? We're going to start with Spain. We actually already touched on this, so we're just going to go over it again. Why did Spain come to North America?
Gold.
Gold, exactly. Gold and silver. So we're going to lump all that together into one category, mineral wealth. All right. Now, we haven't talked about France yet and why they came. But do you guys remember where I said that they established their first colonies? Or what general geographic area?
Arcadia.
Arcadia. Very good. Do you remember where Arcadia was?
Northeast.
Northeast. Okay. So France mainly established colonies in like what is present-day Maine and northeastern Canada. And the reason that France kind of established up here, their main economic interest in coming to the United States was trade. And in particular, the fur trade. Okay? Does anybody have kind of a guess as to what might live up here that they might be going after? I'll give you a clue.
Beaver.
You use them to make hats. or you used to use them to make hats. You were actually on the right.
Was it beaver?
It's beavers, exactly. Okay. Canada, Eastern Canada has a lot of beavers. Maine has a lot of beavers. Just this general area, a lot of that going on. And during the period, early 1600s, huge industry in Europe is hat making. Okay, and a lot of the times they would use beaver skins. That was like the top notch what you can get your hats made out of. So everybody that was anybody as far as fashion, and France has always kind of been the hoity-toity, dressing the nicest kind of people. So they were really interested in the fur trade, and in particular, beavers. All right, we're going to go ahead and skip over the British for now. We'll touch on them last. We're going to go to the Dutch. Okay, do you guys remember where I told you that the Dutch had settled? New Amsterdam first. Where was that?
New York.
New York, exactly, right up here, right on the coast, big port town. Okay, second one. Does anybody remember?
Fort.
Nassau. Okay, Fort Nassau. Fort Nassau is down here. Also, very big port town. Okay, so if there are two establishments or big port towns, what does that kind of tell you about the Dutch?
Trade.
Shipping, trade. Okay, the Dutch were really big into just being merchants, making a lot of their money off having the nicest stuff and being able to provide it at the cheapest cost. So in New York, they established their first colony there at New Amsterdam in order to try and get in on the French's beaver trade. Okay, they were trying to get in on the fur trade. Yes, Julian.
How come we don't see much Dutch language?
Much Dutch language because
Like
where do you see most of the Spanish spoken?
Latin America?
Latin America. All right, Spanish is native to pretty much all of this down here, where the Spain colonized. Okay, and in France or the French, where did they colonize?
Canada?
Canada. Okay, are you guys familiar with northeastern Canada? Okay, what languages do they speak up there?
French.
They speak English and they also speak French. Okay, because there was a very strong French influence in Canada. The British, what?
English?
English, exactly. Okay, and we're going to go into them. I saved them for last for a reason. But they colonized pretty much the whole East Coast.
So the
And
Dutch
would-
weren't interested in
generally-
colonization like the French?
They just weren't able to establish as strong of a dominance as the British were. The British kind of pushed them out because the British had different economic intentions.
They were late.
And we'll get into that. Okay, and it wasn't that they were late. It was just the British had much more different intentions than any of these other groups. So the Dutch, they wanted to get in on the fur trade in Canada and Fort Nassau. Let's see, what was one of the main reasons that we brought slaves to the Caribbean? Do any of you guys know? Yes.
For sugar cane.
Exactly. Okay. Nassau was one of the biggest sugarcane producers, and the Dutch wanted to get their hands in on the sugar. They made a lot of rum, made a lot of money on rum. Okay, so let's go over to the British. The British, you guys remember I told you they had Plymouth and also Jamestown. Do you guys remember generally where on the map? Show me on your maps, kind of just point to it. Okay. Now, does anybody know why the British came to America? No? Yes.
The last teacher told me they were fleeing religious persecution.
That's one of the many reasons, but a lot of people from England that came to North America were fleeing some kind of political, religious persecution from the English crown. A lot of people from Ireland, Scotland, and England came over, and they generally set up colonies along the eastern coast right here, and their main interest was to stay. Okay? They were coming over to colonize. They were coming over to set up new lands for their people to come and make new opportunities for themselves. Spain, they didn't care about colonizing. Okay, they came over, they conquered the Aztecs. The only reason they conquered the Aztecs was because the Aztecs had a ton of gold and a ton of silver, and they needed it to fight the wars that they were fighting. The French, they had a little bit of interest in staying in Canada, but for the most part, they were only really here to set up trade outposts so that they could get to the Native Americans who had their furs so they could ship them back. The Dutch, they just were trying to capitalize on whatever economic trade boost they could get. But the British, they're the main reason why we speak English in our country today and why they had such a strong influence in our country in colonization is because they came to stay. They needed somewhere to go. They don't have much land in England. If I could pull up a nice little map of England right now, it's about the size of Miami. But anyway, we'll go ahead and wrap up. So just in review, okay? What were the Dutch after? Anybody, just call them out.
Trade.
Trade, very good. Okay, in particular, sugar and furs. What were the French after?
Trade.
Trade. In particular,
Beaver.
beaver furs.
Or beavers.
They were coming for the beaver. Spain, what are they here for?
Gold and silver.
Mineral wealth. Okay? Money.
The bling.
And then the British, one more time.
Colonize.
stay.
Colonize, exactly. To stay. All right, guys, for your homework, we're going to do two things. First, I want you to write a 5-paragraph essay choosing any one of these countries other than the British, and I want you to tell me what you think America would be like today if that country had established dominance in the United States over the British. So obviously there's going to be some differences, like maybe language spoken, differences in cultures, stuff like that. And I want you guys to try and come up with something, or at least a 5-paragraph essay, saying why you think it would be different based on whichever country that you pick. Okay? It's not going to be that hard. If you need help, we have the Writing Center. You can always go there for assistance. They'll help you. But anyway, guys, that's about it. We'll go over your homework next week.
Yay.